So this is Olivia Green interviewing Wade Thomas Oberlin for the HBCU Radio Preservation Project. It is 12:03 p.m. on May 7th, 2025, and the interview is being recorded at WCSU in Wilberforce, Ohio. First, can you just tell me your full name and your relationship to WCSU?
My name is Wade Thomas Oberlin, and I've been working here for 5 years at WCSU FM.
And what's your job title?
I'm the operations manager here. I started as an underwriter, and actually, before that, I had started as a volunteer.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about what brought you to your career in radio?
Sure. Well, I had been in the Navy for about 7 years, and my last 2 years were in Tokyo, Japan. And while I was there, I worked in a radio and television station, and I just immediately loved radio. I had worked before, like as a writer and a photographer, and I had done layouts for print and things like that. All stuff I love. But once I was at an AM radio station in Japan, it just felt like the coolest thing ever, you know? And so I wanted to continue that. So once my last 2 years were complete with the Navy, I moved to Washington State, and I worked in commercial radio, like sports broadcasting, things like that. And then I also volunteered at a Pacifica-style radio station called KSCR in Everett, Washington. It's this Navy port town, and they had a really interesting Pacifica-style station where they probably had upwards of maybe 40 volunteers. Everybody would bring in their own records and CDs, and there were comedy programs. I mean, there was like a niche for everything. So I was really impressed with that. And then sometime around 2019, I moved back home. And
where's home?
Home is Jamestown, Ohio.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's where my parents live. And then I was in Xenia, which is right next to Wilberforce here. And I was looking for a place to volunteer. The last show I did at KSCR had been a jazz show. So I thought I can continue doing some sort of music program here. And 2019 going into 2020, at least 3 employees left within a span of like 5 to 6 months. So I decided to apply as quickly as possible for any position, and it ended up being underwriting. And it wasn't long after that our general manager left, and Charles Fox filled that role. So that was one of the 3 positions that left was a general manager. And yeah, so for a while I had a show that I would produce. I've done probably more than 150 episodes, and now I'm a little burnt out on doing a show myself. So within the past 3 years of working at the station, we put together a student station that is an HD channel and also streaming. And that's been sort of where my energy has been headed. I've also not to say I'm not suited for an underwriting role, but my background has been in audio production more than anything. So I've been a lot happier doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the genesis of this student station. How did that come about? Was it like by student request or a program that you guys came up with?
It was actually already in progress when our last general manager was here. His name was Robert Franklin, but he went on to be a general manager at another Pacifica station that wanted him, I believe in Texas. And he might have been on another station before that, but he had already made orders for an HD channel, and it was unused. So the channel was there, nothing was on it, and we still had desks and a number of boards and equipment back there. It seemed like it was just ready to do it, ready to have it happen. So Yeah, I wouldn't say it was by student request, but it was more about something that I saw in it, and that Stefan, our engineer, uh, was capable of putting together pretty quickly.
And so what was the reaction like? Did students seem excited about getting in there?
Yes, students use the space often, and initially at the time, uh, we didn't have a video editing computer in there. But it was purely radio, but it was also made into, sort of like a student lounge in a sense. And there is a student lounge that's just across the way in the hallway here at the Mass Communication Center, but it's not outfitted with computers. It just doesn't have the same feel of what I think like a community station would offer, where things are kind of comfortable, like you want to come in and visit. So.
Yeah. And so people use it as a lounge, as a community space, but as far as like the student programming itself, what does that look like right now?
Right now, what we do is what I like to do is offer instruction on how to edit. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is we record a number of different songs that students would want to hear on their own programs. And in at least one case, we've created drops for their own personalized programs. But generally during the day, we start off with a reggae playlist that was put together by not necessarily a student, but someone who works in IT here on campus who's from Jamaica. And so he wanted to put together a reggae program. So we have a number of different songs that make up about 2 to 3 hours in the morning. And then for the rest of the day, it's a student playlist. And I should say that the student playlist was actually created at first for WCSU FM 88.9. So there's a program that still plays. It's called Student Picks from 5 to 6. And it was just meant to be like an hour of whatever my student interns would record and put together. It would play during that hour, and then they would all record their own, about 10-second drops. Mm-hmm. So they all have their different drops, and they all have their music that would rotate, and that would bring something a little bit fresh to the afternoons during drive time. And so I just used that same playlist, which I think by the time Radio was created was maybe like, 10 days worth of music or something. And just made that the day playlist for the student station. Yeah.
Yeah. And so before this, you were doing other things, including commercial radio. And how does it feel different, like working at a campus station where it's a station, but it also like functions as a learning lab almost? Like, yeah. How do you think about that?
I definitely prefer it to commercial radio. I have my own feelings about commercial radio, but basically Pacifica-style, like volunteer-based radio was always sort of like where I wanted to be. And especially around this area, it's hard to come by. It can be very closed off. And this is about the most open, as it can be, for getting a start in radio if you wanted to. So I felt like it was good to provide that. Students weren't really coming in to this main studio space here. It's clean. It's like clean and immaculate, and it's designed for our morning host and the gospel host and for automation, So to make a space like that is back in Radio is so anyone could come in, anyone could try something, anyone can record. And we've had a number of student leaders who have really been utilizing the space and bringing in a lot of other students too. So,
yeah. And why is it important to have like a community radio format?
I think it just allows people to be, creative in their idea of like how to format or put something together. or it's sort of like where the rubber meets the road. Like we all sort of like visualize ourselves in certain places, but without these stepping stones, we might not reach it. Some people are lucky to have radio stations in their public schools. That's not the case everywhere. So I figured if we're going to have a media space here and we're going to prepare people, then one role that we can have is board operation. Another can be as a host or an editor. These are all valid things, positions that you can find anywhere. But, we have to offer that.
Yeah, there needs to be a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Had you taught much before doing this?
I am not a professor. No, not really. I had been a tutor in school for music theory and things like that. But no, I had gone through school for audio production and mastering. And at first I saw myself working with bands and, recording music. But very quickly I became very sensitive, about my ears and my hearing. And I decided continuing in radio was the best. And yeah, another thing that's taken off in the studio is a lot of students want to film more than anything. They want to film or they want to be involved with broadcasting and video. And I understand that, that could take precedence over radio because it seems like old hat or whatever. But, it's been nice having the space and working with students on a daily basis.
Yeah. And so what do you think you've learned about yourself as a mentor in this role?
Sometimes it's hard to assert yourself. Especially like kids want to operate in the space all the time. And we were pretty rigid in our rules before, especially with the previous general manager. At this point, I'd love it if the station were open 24 hours. I would love to have a space that people could walk in and out of and feel free to use the facilities, and it's something that we wouldn't have to worry about so much. So there's sometimes a bit of pressure as far as just like keeping the space looking good, and like sometimes I'll walk in and just like everything's dirty, like they had just gotten done filming and there's just like mud everywhere. A lot of people are on sports teams, things like that. So, I can see why these spaces have been kept immaculate and there's no students there. And then in the other space, it's, I got to take personal responsibility for it and keep it clean,
Yeah. You mentioned, before that a lot of students are interested in video now and broadcast in general, and that radio is kind of old school.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, we're here as the HBCU Radio Preservation Project, with the understanding that, like, radio as a medium has been important historically and is still important.
Very much.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about why invest in radio? Like, why go into radio now and not other forms of broadcast or audio? Like, what's special about it, I guess?
What's different from radio versus emerging forms is probably a community aspect. Maybe it is a little bit like slower going or more established or something along those lines. But I think it's important because you can go anywhere in the country and presumably in the world if you have a certain amount of skills and know-how and know the language of walking into spaces like this,
Yeah.
Part of what I found exciting about radio recently, it has been in HD radio and these extra channels. Like I love WFMU in New York. They have 4 different channels and all these different DJs that are under like one single umbrella. And not too many stations utilize that to their advantage. I think, getting into like iHeartRadio or, things of that ilk, it's like they have a lot of this stuff locked down, and that's not really stuff that I'm interested in. I'm interested in what sort of shows are happening on these HD channels or from streaming radio in particular that are, kind of off the beaten path. But there's a community there. People just don't see it initially because that's not what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think about a lot of these oral histories, we do them with everyone, including people that were, working in radio in the 60s and the 70s. And, in their heads, like the image of the radio is people gathering around it and being quiet
Yeah.
and listening. And it's like the relationship that we have with radio has changed so much.
It's very big and crass for the most part. Like if you just go through your dial, and what's offered on AM and FM, it's, of course people would be turned off from it, right? But there's a few stations that are always sort of going to be of value if that's what you're looking for. And so, yeah, people shouldn't give up on sort of Pacifica-style or community or college radio formats.
Yeah. Yeah. What have there been any, moments that you've had with students doing this work or with people that are listening to U Radio or to WCSU where you were like, oh, yeah, this is the impact that we're having in the community?
Sure. Well, on the community, I mean, I've definitely noticed different stores and I want to say like restaurants and things like that actually playing our programs when I hadn't heard them before, which is nice because we've had a lot of changes in programming over the years. And so I like to actually drive from the station and then go into town and know that, certain shops are actually carrying us, and like playing us through the day and night. So I love that. But when I think community level, I think student level pretty much. I mean, we have faculty and staff come in and record things as well. But yeah, when it comes to students, I'm really happy when I hear from a student and that they've been working or interning at radio stations or newspapers or anywhere, with their media degree. I even have students that come here who aren't part of media, and I feel like they're almost always interested in a podcast to supplement something else that they do. And it's interesting. Like it's mostly older faculty and staff who are interested in podcasts, and most students are interested in filmmaking or movie making, broadcasting in some way.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about kind of the CSU community specifically and how radio functions within it? Like, who are your listeners? Are students tuning in? Is faculty tuning in? Is it mostly the surrounding communities?
Yeah, faculty tunes in, definitely. Students, as far as the jazz side of things, I haven't heard too much about that. The student station, people will tune in to hear, their own work. For a while we were doing news programs that were live around, what did we call it? It was the Noonish Ooh News Report or something like that. It was very alliterative, right? But, and they would get family and friends to tune in for those news programs specifically. So I would say that's been the impact. U Radio is sort of in-house more than anything just because it's sort of like a training ground. But anytime people have wanted people to tune in, they have.
Yeah. What kinds of programming do you see students be interested the most?
Most of them want to debate or talk about the news, especially current events and then campus events, sports, things like that. I expected more music programs to take off, and surprisingly, it's been veering toward talk more than anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What would you say is your proudest accomplishment here within, yeah.
Well, probably this graduation coming up.
Okay, tell me about it.
I'm just ready for it. I'm ready for graduation this year. One of my students, his name's Stephen Key. He's been a filmmaker for some time. He's had internships out in Los Angeles, and I think he's going to do really great work. I'm excited to see where he goes from here. I'm also happy that I'm having some students come back tomorrow who I haven't seen in about 3 years. And they were around when OO was first developed. So, my favorite accomplishment was getting it together out of practically nothing, and that it's still used probably more than ever before.
Amazing. And so I want to think a little bit about OO Radio as a lab, and you talked about it as it being a place where people can come and get the foundation and see themselves doing something that they imagined. Why is that important specifically to have at an HBCU?
To have in an HBCU? Well, I mean, some people don't have this in high school. A lot of people coming from schools probably don't have much of anything. So to come here, you want to offer them something. You don't want to give them more of what they've probably already experienced, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the key things is offering a space where people can come together and talk about their experiences and work things through. And it's a space that they can really develop themselves.
Awesome. Okay. I just want to do a time check to make sure it's 12:25.
Okay.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I like these questions.
Cool. I'll have a couple more for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the words of advice that you give to people that are learning radio, learning media, very early career versions of yourself, but in this moment, if someone was like, okay, I want to go into radio today, what are the 2 things you would tell them?
Keep showing up. That's one of the big things, is to be consistent and keep showing up. And learn your keyboard shortcuts. That's a big one. I also have this big sheet. It's like a 5-page pamphlet. I'll try and find one for you. But it's a volunteer pamphlet that I initially made for volunteers. I think at first we were into the idea of just bringing anyone in to be a DJ, probably on the 88.9 side of things. But eventually I turned it into the volunteer and student, sort of worksheet. And it has a few things on it. One is a brief history of KSER and Pacifica-style radio and how impactful that was. And then I also have a page of radio terminology that's good to know. And it ends with talking about Radio Garden. I'm sure you're familiar with Radio Garden. So I love it. I love that I can listen to both of the stations here, and then you can zoom out and you can see what's happening in the U.S., or suddenly you're in Canada, then you're in South America, Australia, all over the map, So I tried to open their minds to, now it's just like, what city do you envision yourself in? You feel like you're going back to Detroit. You feel like moving to Atlanta. You feel like moving to Los Angeles. What's available there? And you can learn about it in an instant.
Yeah.
So, I try and teach them about Radio Garden too, in addition to learning their keyboard shortcuts for editing and things like that.
Yeah, I remember that. I had the little sleeve on my keyboard forever with the with the shortcut printed on there so I could see it. Yeah.
It'll make things so much easier.
I finally don't need it anymore, which felt like a big deal.
Yeah.
So what have you learned about yourself as a person stepping into this role?
I feel much calmer now. I mean, the world is always like accelerating and getting, worse. I'm not a pessimist or anything, but I love living close to home, and I love being in sort of a rural environment where things can move just a little bit more slowly. And, I feel this is very similar to my time in Japan as well, where I just feel like I'm in an environment that's not quite of the norm. It's an abnormality for the area, and I'm fine with that. Like, I love working in areas like this, Can
you talk a little bit more about that?
It's basically just, sort of an experience that is not common. And maybe on the West Coast it would be more common, or either of the coasts, but it's not like it's cosmopolitan or anything. But I just love it.
Yeah. And did you grow up?
Very country area here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very rural. Mm. I came past here going to school in Xenia and the Greene County Career Center and things like that, vocational schools. And, it's pretty white. It's about 98% white, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how do you think about, your positionality here at this station, considering it's like the first Black college station?
Yeah.
Like it's cool. Like, how do you think about your role within that history?
Well, I got to talk to Stefan mostly about, the different periods, especially of radio here. And it started in a trailer, from what I understand, like a trailer in a tower. And it's just been growing and growing since then. And our signal goes all the way out to Dayton. Of course, you'll hear about the tornado in '74. I have a yearbook in my office that's from that time. And I've been over to the Wilberforce campus just out of general interest to go through their archives. I'm interested in music and jazz particularly. There's an artist that came from around here. Her name was Mae Carlisle. And when I was first listening to Radio Garden when I moved back home, I had discovered her music. And a friend that I was talking to told me, it's like, Mae Carlisle, she's buried in Jamestown, just like walkable from my house. Mm-hmm. And so I'd be at lunch, and it's like, well, I'm going to try and find her. And so I found her grave and her family and all this sort of stuff. And I got to work with someone who was writing this very long piece about her. And he was looking for more information, so I got to step out into Wilberforce, where she had been a student for some time, and started pouring through their archives. I couldn't find anything. So it was kind of sad in that regard that I couldn't find anything there, but we're lucky that there was so much already to pull from in the case of his book and his studies and things like that. But that was one really exciting moment. Like when I was first starting was just like getting to know the history. That was one piece of history that I really liked looking at.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can reflect on this project and how you feel like maybe it's important, or how it would serve somebody with your position or interest.
Especially in this political environment right now where we're being threatened with erasure of so much. It is crucial. It's an absolutely crucial thing to be doing. Well, I'm an archivist. I love archive.org. I love saving articles that I know will disappear in a year or so if the website just disintegrates or something like that. I like to keep PDFs of things.
Yeah.
I naturally just want to, put the past in amber and have it
You get
at
it.
the ready.
You should talk to our NEDCC folks
Mm-hmm.
because we work with like the field archivists that come and actually dig up CDs and old tapes and digitize them. And every time like I walk into a room with those folks, they're like digging through boxes for stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a resurgence of people understanding the importance of having physical stuff.
Yeah. And to be able, I was told earlier that it's being shipped to Massachusetts or something. And, there's got to be people who operate those machines. I got to learn how to work a reel-to-reel machine here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw that happening. But
Want to take up too much of your time?
right.
Because I know that we're going to want to do like a longer interview with you where we get more into the weeds about what you do here and like your own personal journey. But is there anything that you want to say about U Radio quickly before we end?
Sure. It's OOOradio.com for those who are wondering just how many O's are in it. And you can visit it at the Mass Communication Center in Wilberforce, Ohio at Central State University. We have a big banner on the wall. So come by and check it out.
Awesome.